Hello and welcome to day 2 of Walk Through the Word. This is our Pentecost in the Books of Acts series, the Book of Acts series. And so if you didn't get a chance to take a look at day number 1's video, yesterday's video, I highly recommend you do so because that is where we essentially laid the foundation upon which we're going to build. So we're going to jump right in, and today we're still in Acts chapter 1, and we'll be looking at verses 3 through 7. And essentially what Luke does is he starts off this book with a recap. You know, the shows that we like to watch on a weekly basis, you know, those drama shows, usually at the beginning of the new show on that week, they do a recap of what took place the week before or the weeks before. And so that we are, it's fresh in our mind as to what's going on and we can connect the dots. And so Luke essentially does the same thing. He starts with this recap and says, hey, because remember, this is letter number 2. He wrote the book of Luke, which what we refer to as the book of Luke was actually his first letter to Theophilus, and now Acts is his second letter. He says, hey, remember first letter, you know, I wrote to you, I talked to you about Jesus, I talked to you about his death, his burial, and his resurrection. I told you about how he walked around with the disciples for 40 days, and he uses this term infallible proofs. I just love that. I told you he was educated. This was the only time in the Bible that you see those terms used. Infallible proof, that Jesus demonstrated that, to prove that it was really him, and to validate his ministry and his resurrection. And so he goes on and continues to detail some of what took place during those 40 years. He relays the fact that Jesus was there with the disciples, giving them information, talk about the kingdom. And at one point it comes up, he's talking about the kingdom, and it comes up that the disciples say, Lord, are you getting ready to establish your kingdom now? I'm pretty sure they were excited. And Jesus is like, no. It's not for you to know the times and the seasons of God. That's not what this is all about at this particular point. And so if you want to understand why they were waiting for Jesus to establish his kingdom or expecting him to establish his kingdom, let's look at the Israelite history. And over the course of time, even when you read in the Old Testament, we realize that this wasn't the first time that they had been oppressed by another nation or another group of people. And throughout our Bible history, we realize that time and time again, God had always sent someone to come and establish the kingdom again. When we even look at the book of Judges is nothing more than the stories of all of the different men and women that God raised up in order to deliver his people out of oppression and to establish them once again as a whole, as a nation, an entity of themselves. And so they are expecting this type of triumphant ruler to come in, and they're excited, I imagine, because they're thinking, oh, now he's back, and after his resurrection, he's got to be ready to establish his throne and his kingdom now, because they were under Roman rule. They had been subjugated. They had been conquered by Rome and now were subjects of Rome. They were not the nation of Israel any longer. They were subjects of the Roman Empire. So they were waiting on Jesus to make his move. But Jesus says, no, that's not what's going to happen right now. And it's not even your concern when it's going to happen. It's not your place to know the time of God, the seasons of God. And so I can imagine that they were a little bit confused maybe by this, because it would have seemed, given Israel history, that this would have been the next natural progression of establishing the kingdom. But what they didn't understand was that God had a plan so much bigger than the nation of Israel. He had such a plan that it was so huge that it was going to go around the globe. It was going to involve not only the Jews, but the Gentiles as well. It was going to be multicultural, multi-ethnicity. It was going to just go around, as I said, become global. And so they were limited in their thinking because they were thinking about the immediate kingdom. How often and easy it is for us to become limited in our thinking because we feel that what in our own wisdom should be the next step or the natural next progression. We feel that it's the best, not realizing that God has a plan that's much greater than anything that we can hope or imagine. And then also in these passages, these scriptures, we find that Jesus gives them instructions and says, I don't want you to leave Jerusalem. I want you to hang out here in the Jerusalem area until the Holy Ghost comes. He literally says, I want you to wait on the promise of God. Wow. Any of us who have tried to live a godly lifestyle and follow the leading of God have probably found ourselves over the course of time, if not many times, in that holding pattern, just waiting on God. And here it is. He tells them, I want you just to wait. Not going to tell you how long. Later on we'll find it say it won't be many days hence. But how many of you know that Peter says that a day is like 1,000 years to God? So what do you mean by not too many days? Is it a couple of weeks? Is it a couple of months? He just told them simply to wait on the promise of God. And I want to leave you with that today. You wait on the promise of God for your life. Kingdom blessings, and I'll see you tomorrow.